Bismillah. Have you ever received an email that changed your life? It's rare, but it's the type of thing that happens from time to time. And one January recently, I received one such message. It came a day before my birthday, and it couldn't have been a better gift. It read, "Congratulations, we'd like to invite you to screen your work, Hamtramck, USA, at the South by Southwest Film Festival." It was a dream come true for me and the team that worked on the project, and it was particularly surprising and humbling for me because less than a few years prior to that, I was working as an engineer building a career in corporate America. But more on that a bit later. The film takes place in the small but unique city of Hamtramck, Michigan. It's just 40 minutes east of Ann Arbor. It's a multicultural enclave within Detroit where one can hear a stunning audio soundscape that mixes languages like Polish, Bosnian, Arabic, and Bangla, along with the sounds of bells from the many Polish Catholic churches or the Islamic call to prayer, the adhan, coming from the many storefront mosques that are peppered around town. By immersing viewers into the ins and outs of a recent city election, my film invites audiences to consider the question, what does life and democracy look like in such a richly diverse, culturally and ethnically diverse community? And the question was an important one to consider because there's always been so much fear and misunderstanding about Muslims in America. A lot of it has to do with how Muslims have been portrayed in the media. And so it was important to answer these questions through a film like this because I was part of these communities and I was personally affected by it as well. The late media scholar Jack Shaheen's book, Real Bad Arabs, How Hollywood Vilifies a People, he surveys over 1,000 films which looks at the portrayals of Arabs and Muslims in those films and found that over 94% of those portrayals were either negative or unfavorable. Films like True Lies, The Rules of Engagement, and more recently, Zero Dark 30 and American Sniper, exemplify this reality. These type of depictions affect Muslims all over the world and right here locally. Hamtramck itself isn't immune to this type of coverage.
Hundreds of thousands of refugees flood Europe to leave war-torn Syria and Iraq in recent months. Here at home in Hamtramck, Michigan, has become the first Muslim-majority city in America.
Un vote a fait de Hamtramck la première ville aux États-Unis à autoriser l'amplification de l'appel à la prière.
Hamtramck hat offiziell rund 22.000 Einwohner. Geschätzte 20% davon kommen eigentlich aus Bangladesch, weitere 20% aus dem Jemen. Durch Zuwanderer aus anderen Ländern wurde Hamtramck 2013 zur ersten Stadt mit mehrheitlich muslimischer Bevölkerung.
You govern a majority Muslim American city. Are you afraid?
These type of hyperbolic portrayals affect Muslims all over the world, and they lump communities like Hamtramck into global anti-Muslim tropes that perpetuate the fear of Islam, immigrants, and refugees. And it has a real impact since the media help shape our ideas about almost everything, from politics to gender to religion to our views about different groups of people in a society. And since I was from these communities, I took this misrepresentation personally. It meant that by association and by extension, I too was being misrepresented. But by working on my film, Hamtramck, USA, I'd become an author in the media discourse about the issues that I was passionate about, like fighting racism and Islamophobia and promoting multiculturalism. And for viewers of the film, what better way to get an insight into such a richly diverse community than by observing its engagement with one of our most core and sacred institutions, the democratic process. And what viewers learned when they watched the film was that democracy in America's first Muslim-majority city, despite the sensationalized portrayals, looks like democracy in any other town in America. It's competitive, it's messy, it's beautiful, and while undoubtedly some people will be left unsatisfied with the results of any given election results, most people in America agree that the system largely works. And this is what we came up with.
For generations, Hamtramck, Michigan was predominantly Polish American. Now, it is the first Muslim-majority city in America.
I came here at age 3. It was not the way that it looks now.
What will happen when candidates from both these communities run for mayor and city council?
We need to be able to unite with one another.
This is my city.
and there's no place like it.
Hamtramck, USA, on America Reframed.
If you were to have told me prior to this that I'd have a debut film premiere at a major international film festival, I would have told you were crazy. Growing up in an immigrant family from northern India in the Cass Corridor neighborhood of Detroit, and later the working class suburb of Taylor in the 1980s and 90s, I was always an artsy kid. I remember drawing and sketching all the time and using my dad's Minolta film camera to take photos on family vacations. But at the time, I really didn't know what that meant, and I certainly didn't have any examples in my community of working artists that I could look up to or follow. Most people in my family and my small Muslim community aspired to be doctors or engineers, with a few accountants, lawyers, and business people thrown in the mix. So as time went on, I decided to be prudent and decided to pursue a more conventional career. However, I found it really difficult to find fulfillment in that kind of a career. I was toiling away and trying to make a life for myself. And I was surrounded by all kinds of people that were content or even happy with their careers, but I wasn't one of them. And if I could just go back for a second, when I started studying engineering in college, I started getting involved in campus activism, specifically protesting issues like Islamophobia or the war in Iraq, and raising awareness about refugees or the Palestinians who were suffering under decades of occupation. So that period of activism really had an impact on my life and really helped shape my worldview. So when I entered the workforce, I felt like I lost a part of myself trying to be a good employee. And I was also going through other personal challenges as well. I just didn't find satisfaction in this work, and I was also going through a divorce at the time, and also coming to terms with a painful anxiety disorder, something I still struggle with today. Eventually, I became a manager at a biotech startup in Ann Arbor at a company not too far from here. But despite the serious responsibilities of that role, my last few months there were really challenging. And I kind of just checked out, and I couldn't really do anything. Well, I did read a lot of New York Times articles, and I listened to hours of NPR and podcasts, and did some of my finest daydreaming while I was in my office. Unlike you guys, however, my employers did not find this to be amusing or charming, so they fired me due to lack of effort and underperformance, and that really didn't come as a surprise, and if I was just being honest with myself, it really was time for a change. And looking back at that period, I'm reminded of a quote from the recent Elton John biopic, Rocket Man, where a Motown singer whom Elton is playing piano for gives him advice about building his career. And he tells the young Elton, "You gotta kill the person you were born to become the person you want to be." And looking back at that time, I think this was one of the biggest lessons from that moment. I had to shed many of the previous expectations on myself to pursue what I wanted. And at that time, while I didn't exactly know what was next, a couple of things started to become clear. I knew that I wanted to make art and tell stories and combine it with my passion for activism. And now was a time to actually give myself a fair shot and try it out. The subsequent years were truly a period of exploration and purpose and creativity. I channeled my inner activist and I flew to Greece, to the island of Lesbos, during the height of the Syrian refugee crisis to volunteer as an aid worker. While there, I did everything from helping people off the boats when they arrived to shore to preparing meals. But I also brought my camera with me and I documented what I saw. I saw in people's eyes what dislocation from one's homeland really looks like. And people also told me their stories. And I realized that through my footage that I could help give a voice and represent these misunderstood and vulnerable refugees. These were the kind of stories that I wanted to tell, and the camera was a powerful tool to do it through. Today, I'm an actively working documentary filmmaker and an MFA graduate student at the Stamp School of Art and Design here at the University of Michigan. And for my MFA thesis project, I'm taking on my most ambitious story and my most ambitious film yet. It follows the story of a young Yemeni refugee. His name is Omar. Omar is smart and funny. He's well-read, from anime comics to Russian literature. And when we met, we immediately hit it off and we became friends. By getting to know Omar, I learned that he had fled his native Yemen due to the civil war that broke out in 2014. And through an unbelievable journey, he ended up stuck in South Korea on a temporary visa while he struggles and works to figure out a way to be reunited with his wife and kids, who are still back in Yemen, and his parents, who I was surprised to learn, are living right here in Southeast Michigan. So for over half a year now, I've been filming in Seoul and Detroit in order to tell a truthful and hopeful story about migration and family reunification. And I just wanted to share a moment from my time in Korea filming with Omar.
The view is so amazing, it's so nice, to just relax. But it would be perfect if you had, your kids are swimming right there. Well, and you have a family, fun time.
Every community deserves to be seen with truth, respect, and nuance. Filmmaking is such a beautiful and collaborative craft, and when guided properly, has the ability to portray even the most complex stories. I hope to continue to tell these stories myself through my own work, but today I'm not the only one. There's a small group of artists working in the industry across documentary films and television and feature films. And I hope these numbers grow into a larger, robust, and more collaborative community, and that I hope that our work is seen by wider audiences. It's also important that our perspectives are included when others are making films about our community as well, and that we're heard when we raise our concerns about our portrayals in those films. You, as viewers, as consumers of media, also have a role to play. I want you to think about how we as consumers have become more conscious in the way that we get our food or buy our clothes. Nobody wants to eat food where the animals were mistreated, and nobody wants to buy clothes which were manufactured through exploited labor. So I'm asking you to think about film and entertainment and media through the same framework. When we consume media that portrays and perpetuates harmful stereotypes, there's direct harm to the communities that are being portrayed. We as viewers then perpetuate those stereotypes further through our interactions with others. And so I'm calling on you now to be more mindful and intentional about seeking authentic stories from the artists who represent the communities that they're from. You may find your perspectives expanded by opening yourself up to cultures that you're not familiar with, that we're all surrounded by, but rarely get to hear from. Thank you.